It's also been commented.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. His time has expired. Call Kevin Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to take a brief call on this bill. As returning members to this House are aware, biosecurity is a bit of a passion of mine. We are an island nation. Our biodiversity in this nation is entirely unique in the world. If we lose it here, we lose it everywhere in the world. And thus we have a duty as custodians not only for that magnificent natural heritage for our own sakes and for its own sake, but on behalf of the world to look after that heritage. But that unique biodiversity that New Zealanders love and want to protect is also crucially important to our economy. That tourism is our number one industry, and the tourists come here because of that natural biodiversity. So the stakes around biodiversity and protecting it are extraordinarily high. And likewise, our other major industries tend to be trading industries and in particular trading of primary products. And those industries too are extraordinarily vulnerable to imported threats. So getting biosecurity right is fundamentally important to our nation and to our economy. In a succession of biosecurity bills that the government progressed through the last term of Parliament, I spoke about a couple of things, a couple of major themes. One was the level of risk that was posed to getting biosecurity wrong, and the other was around the changes that were being made, particularly at the border, as we are addressing in this bill, that we were also getting wrong as a nation. So the risks are extraordinary. So if we think about a single piece of fruit infected with fruit fly coming into this country, the cost of that single piece of fruit is estimated to be $800 million in the first year alone, and to cost 5,000 jobs in the Bay of Plenty alone. So we're talking very high stakes, foot and mouth higher still. And yet, sir, our border measures are not keeping pace with those threats. They are not proportional to those threats. There are, and the latest number I have is from 2009, approaching 400,000 loaded containers coming into New Zealand each year that are not inspected at the border. 400,000. Well, Mr. Speaker, that is an extraordinarily cavalier approach to something that has potentially such major impacts on our country and on our economy. Yet government's direction around that interface between customs and biosecurity has been going in the wrong direction. Biosecurity is inevitably a process. It starts in country of origin, it comes through border control measures, and it progresses into post-border mechanisms in the event of incursions. All of that's important. But what government has been doing has been weakening the bit that goes around the border. Entirely the wrong thing to do. So we've seen the budget cuts. We've seen the reduction in staff numbers in biosecurity. We've seen the adoption of an approach in biosecurity based on risk profiling. That means fewer people actually being checked. And when that was trialled, sir, in fact, those who were not profiled for inspection were found to be bringing in significant threats. So the direction of travel is wrong. Now, thankfully, this bill is not fundamentally enacting that machinery, and we're happy to support it. If for the dogs alone, that's enough for me, sir. But one last caution. The main thing that this bill does is facilitate information sharing. And in the last 2 weeks, we have seen a state agency that is fundamentally concerned with the confidentiality of information getting it entirely wrong. These two agencies need to really step up their game to get it right.
I call Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi.
It's my privilege to participate in the third reading